During the period of critical reviews, I was treated like a restaurant, and I didn't even suspect it. That's exactly how I felt when I found out what my wife was really doing. She had turned our marriage into a private comedy show to entertain her friends. It all started on a normal Thursday. I came home from work earlier than usual. The house was strangely quiet. Too quiet. I called out, but no one answered. Not thinking much of it, I headed to the kitchen to get a drink. That's when I heard her voice coming from the home office. She was talking on the phone. At first, it sounded like harmless conversation. But then I caught snippets of the conversation that made me freeze. She was laughing, that laugh, cold, disdainful, cruel. And then she said something about barely getting by with a C this time. I moved closer, driven by curiosity. What I heard made my stomach clench. During the home skills competition, I almost felt sorry for him, she said, giggling. He tried so hard with dinner last week, but the girls were ruthless, 3.5 points on average. Can you believe it? That dinner. I remembered it well. She asked me to cook dinner for her and her friends, said it would be nice. I went all out. My grandmother's recipe, a perfectly set table, wine pairing. I believed I was being thoughtful. It turned out I was being graded. I thought I was a good husband, I realized, but she was evaluating me like I was on a sadistic reality show. Then came the punch in the gut. The intimacy scores were even worse, she continued. Michelle gave him a B. She says he lacks creativity and initiative. Everyone agreed. Then I realized she was exposing the most intimate aspects of our marriage for entertainment. She was sharing things that should have remained between us. She was allowing her friends to evaluate me. She kept talking, not noticing that I was standing there. Next week, we'll be evaluating appearance and communication skills. I asked the girls to bring their evaluation sheets. After that disaster at the company party, I'm expecting low scores. The company party. An evening that I believed had gone well. I talked to people. I tried hard. I was proud of how I behaved. But obviously, I had no idea what was really going on. I stepped back from the door, my head spinning. 8 years of marriage, and she had turned it into some kind of twisted science project. She wasn't just gathering her thoughts. She was conducting full-blown evaluation sessions with categories and scores. But the worst part? The way she talked about me. Not with irritation or disappointment. I could understand that. No, it was pure disrespect. As if I wasn't her husband, but some awkward intern she had to take under her wing. I sat down on the edge of the bed, stunned. How many times had I smiled at her friends, unaware that they had just been evaluating my performance? How many casual comments suddenly took on a new, malicious meaning? Jessica's smirk. Michelle's strangely specific questions, the overly attentive way they all looked at me at dinner and at parties. They were taking notes. I heard her coming up the stairs. I grabbed a book and pretended to read. She came in, smiling as casually as ever. "Hi, sweetie. How was your day?" "Same as usual," I muttered, not looking up. She changed her clothes, talking about her plans as if nothing had happened. But for me, everything had changed. I kept seeing that smile. Now I knew it wasn't affection, it was mockery. If she wanted to play games, fine. She'd soon find out what it was like when someone played to win. I wasn't going to walk out in anger or yell, not this time. The next morning, I woke up with a new goal. To find out how deep this went. Knowledge was power, and she'd just given me my first clue. While she was showering, I did something I never thought I could do. I searched her home office. Not her phone. Not yet. Just her desk. What I found made me physically sick. A folder labeled Book Club Notes. Nothing suspicious on the surface, but inside were spreadsheets, printed out and organized by date. At the top of each page were categories: appearance, contribution to household, conversational skills, finances, romantic relationships. My name was at the top of each page. Her friend's initials filled the columns below, each assigning a grade from 1 to 10. Most of the grades were around 5 or 6. Some were lower, much lower. And at the bottom, her handwritten comments. Neatly, methodically. Still needs help with wardrobe, despite hints. Lack of initiative noted again. Social awkwardness at dinner party. Jessica mentioned stuttering during conversation about politics. It was dispassionate, ruthless, personal. I photographed every page. My hands were shaking with rage. And then I saw the very last entry. A note in her handwriting that made my heart stop. Consider strengthening the evaluation process. Friends suggest video recording for accuracy. They wanted to record me. I heard the water turn off upstairs and quickly put everything back where it belonged. I went to the kitchen. I made coffee. I pretended to be who she still believed me to be. Clueless. She came downstairs as if nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek. "You're up early," she smiled. "I couldn't sleep," I replied. But I wasn't tired. I was alert. I answered honestly, "Just decided to start early." She took her coffee and started scrolling through her phone. I watched her, trying to catch the slightest hint of guilt, any hesitation that might indicate remorse for what she was doing. But there was nothing. If anything, she seemed more cheerful than usual. "The girls are coming over on Friday night," she said casually. "The usual book club. Do you mind if we go without you?" Book club. More like Rate My Husband Club, where I was apparently the entertainment. "Actually," I replied, stirring my coffee slowly, "I was thinking of staying in on Friday. Maybe we could order some food and watch a movie, and it's been a long week." Her smile faltered slightly, but she quickly regained her composure. "Oh, well, we need a place to discuss. You know how heated our literary discussions can get." "Literature." My boldness was almost impressive. "Sure," I replied casually. "I'll think of something." She looked relieved and went back to her phone. I continued to play my part, pretending everything was fine, while my mind was racing with plans for the next steps. Now I had proof, not just a single instance, but an organized, ongoing plan. Later that day, I contacted an old friend who was a private investigator. I didn't need him to find out anything. I already had everything I needed. I needed advice on how to effectively gather and present the evidence. If I wanted to regain control of the situation, I had to act carefully. That night, after she fell asleep, I finally checked her phone. The password, our anniversary date, was a bitter joke. Her messages to her friends were a minefield of cruelty. The group chat was called Rating Night, and what I saw made me sick. There were tables with ratings, mocking emojis, intimate details I had trusted her with, things we had laughed about together. One message read, "Poor thing, he really believed that candlelight dinner was romantic. No idea he was being rated." How embarrassing. Another message from her friend Michelle said, "Next category, ability to pick up on hints. He would get a score below 0. But the message that shattered all my remaining illusions came just the day before. "Can't wait for tomorrow's session. There's new material about his fear of public speaking. It's going to be killer." Fear of public speaking. Something I shared in a moment of vulnerability. Once. And now it was the butt of jokes. She slept soundly next to me, unaware that I was done playing the fool. She had treated our marriage like a bad sitcom for months, and now she was about to find out what it was like to be the hero. She wasn't the only one with stories. I knew details about her friends, personal painful things they had told her over the years, and she had told me. I had always kept those things secret, because that's what decent people do. But now, the rules had changed. She had started a game she wasn't ready to finish, but I was ready. When Friday rolled around, I felt calm, focused. She was humming around the house, clearly excited about the upcoming event. Meanwhile, I was finalizing my plan. First, I called Rebecca, a colleague who had always been nice, level-headed, and exactly the kind of woman who makes a wife nervous. "Hi, Rebecca," I said. "My wife is having a bachelorette party. I need to get out. Would you like to have dinner and maybe help me pick out some new clothes?" I believed it was time for a change. She sounded pleasantly surprised. "Sounds tempting. I love helping with shopping. 7 o'clock, okay?" "Great. Rebecca, how about somewhere fancy? Somewhere we'll get noticed?" She laughed. "Sure." Then I called Sarah from marketing, a young, ambitious, and charming woman. I invited her out for coffee the next morning to discuss some networking ideas. Then I called Amanda, my neighbor, who had recently gotten divorced. She had once mentioned how difficult it was to find a man who would listen to her. I suggested we meet for lunch the following week to talk about her business ideas and how I could help her with networking. Each interaction was friendly and professional, but together they told a completely different story. A story my wife would definitely notice. When she came home that evening, she looked excited, expecting the usual routine. "How was your day?" she asked, putting down her purse. "Productive," I replied, adjusting my tie in the mirror. "I'm going to have dinner and do some shopping. It's time to update my wardrobe." She blinked. "Shopping? You hate shopping?" "People change." I glanced at her reflection. "I decided to take your advice about my appearance. You always said I could use a little help." Her expression froze for a moment, no doubt remembering the low marks she and her friends had given me in the chat room. "Oh, that's nice. Who are you going with?" "Rebecca, from work. She has great taste." The name didn't come to me right away, but then I remembered. Attractive, smart, single, everything that would be gnawing at her all night. "Have fun," she said, but there wasn't her usual lightness in her voice. "I will." I kissed her on the cheek. "Don't wait up for me." As I drove away, I saw her watching me from the window. Let her wonder. Rebecca and I had a fantastic evening. We had dinner at one of the most elegant restaurants in town, where, as it turned out, many of our acquaintances were dining. We chatted easily and laughed often. To an outside observer, it looked like a date. Afterwards, we went to an expensive boutique where she helped me choose some new clothes that completely changed my look. The staff commented several times on how lucky I was. I didn't correct them. When I got home just before 11, the lights were on, and I could hear laughter. Her little club was still going strong. Perfect. I walked in with bags in my hands, elegantly dressed, and my appearance cut through the noise in the living room like a knife. "Sorry to interrupt," I said as I entered the room. "I just want a glass of water, and then I'll go upstairs." All 5 women fell silent. Michelle's jaw literally dropped. Jessica blinked as if she were seeing me for the first time, and my wife's face reflected shock and something else, fear. "You look," she began. "Different," I finished. "Rebecca has great taste. We had a wonderful evening." I let the words sink in. "Don't let me interrupt. What are you reading?" More silence. Then Jessica muttered something about contemporary literature. "Oh," I nodded. "Rebecca told me about a wonderful novel. It's about people who believe they're pulling the strings, but in reality, they're being manipulated. Sounds profound." With that, I picked up my glass of water and headed upstairs. I didn't even have to listen to hear the voices start up again as I left. From my room, I sent a message to Amanda. "Looking forward to our lunch next week. Can't wait to hear your plans." Then to Sarah. "Coffee tomorrow is great. We'll talk strategy." The game was on. I had a few ideas that I thought she would like, so I sent them when I was sure the new message alert would be clearly audible downstairs. 20 minutes later, I heard the rustle of car doors and the hum of an engine. Apparently, the book club had ended early. Soon she came upstairs with an expression that wavered between confusion and alarm. "Well," she asked, trying to be polite. How was your evening? Informative, I replied, hanging up my new clothes. Rebecca helped me understand a few things I hadn't noticed before. Like what? I turned to her and saw indecision in her eyes for the first time in months. Now she wasn't sure of the rules, didn't know what game we were playing, and that was exactly what I wanted. Oh, just how sometimes, when you see yourself through someone else's eyes, you realize how low your standards were. I could see her struggling internally, trying to figure out what I really meant. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. I'm going to bed early, I said casually. Tomorrow is going to be a busy day. Coffee with Sarah in the morning, then a meeting with Amanda about her project. I deliberately mentioned the names, leaving them hanging in the air like unfamiliar pieces of a puzzle. I knew she wouldn't dare ask directly without revealing her hand. Later, lying in bed, I could feel her looking at me differently, probably wondering who this stranger was who had become her husband. The answer was simple. I was no longer the man who played defense. I had a new strategy, and unlike her games, mine had real stakes. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm and was already dressed in one of my new suits. The changes weren't just external. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back at me. But I liked what I saw. When I left, she was still asleep. I left a note on the table, out to meet Sarah. Back in the afternoon. Have a good day. Short. Neutral. But I knew it would gnaw at her. Sarah and I met at a popular cafe in the city center, the kind of place where half the city goes to socialize or be seen. She looked stunning, as always, and we took a seat by the window where passers-by could see us. You look completely different, she said after a minute. Like a different person. That's the goal, I replied. Sometimes you have to get rid of the past to make room for who you're meant to be. We immersed ourselves in a discussion of marketing ideas for a couple of hours. Sarah was witty, enthusiastic, and really listened. She made me feel like my opinion mattered. Funny how rare that had become. As we were finishing up, she leaned forward slightly. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but whoever inspired you to be this version of yourself is a lucky person. I smiled. Let's just say the inspiration is mutual. When I returned, she was in the kitchen pretending nothing had happened, but it was clear she had been keeping track of the time. How was the meeting? Productive. Sarah is brilliant. We'll be collaborating on a few new projects. Collaborating? As in, working together a lot? She's exactly the kind of partner I need. The word partner sounded perfectly accurate. I paused just long enough to let the ambiguity sink in before clarifying. Professionally, of course. Although I must admit, it's nice to be around someone who genuinely appreciates my strengths. Without waiting for her response, I headed upstairs to change. I had lunch with Amanda ahead of me. We met at the restaurant where she used to go with her ex. She said she was reclaiming the place, reclaiming her history. I believed it was a beautiful symbol. You look amazing, she greeted me. I almost didn't recognize you. New wardrobe, new mindset, I replied, pulling out a chair for her. Sometimes you need to reboot. Over lunch, she told me about her previous marriage, the emotional neglect, the constant criticism, the slow decline in her self-esteem. The worst part was, she said, that I always felt judged, like I wasn't good enough. Not even close, I replied, remembering all the times I had been someone's entertainment. That sounds exhausting, I said, remembering all the times I had been someone's entertainment. It was, she said. But I realized something. People who constantly judge others do so because they're afraid of being judged themselves. Smart woman. When I got home, she was pacing around the living room, agitated. We need to talk, she said. About what? About you. You've changed lately. You're going out more, hanging out with those women, buying clothes. It's like you're a different person. Maybe I have, I said, sitting down calmly. Maybe I'm tired of being who everyone wanted me to be. What does that mean? It means I've started putting myself first, surrounding myself with people who appreciate me. She looked stunned. But I see your value. Really? The silence that followed spoke volumes. Of course I do. You're my husband. 8 years, I said quietly, and yet I've turned out to be a project that you think needs fixing. Her face paled. What are you talking about? Oh, just an observation. Some people treat relationships like performance reviews. She tried to keep up, trying to figure out how much I knew. If I've seemed critical lately, she began cautiously, it's only because I want us to grow, to be better. Interesting word, critical, I said. Depends on the context. Are we talking about constructive criticism or systematic analysis? Maybe weekly evaluations? She froze. Admitting the truth would mean revealing everything. Denial would mean continuing the lie that she now knew had been exposed. I think you misunderstood, she said. Me? I glanced at my phone and grinned. Rebecca just texted, asking if I'm free for dinner. Looks like she had a better time than she expected. The phone rang. Another message. Sarah wants our coffee dates to be weekly. She says our conversations are the highlight of her week. I noticed her hands clench. Are you sleeping with these women? Sleep with them? Number. But I'm expanding my social circle, making room for people who know how to treat others with respect. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've finally remembered what it's like to feel valued. Then she said it, without thinking. Valued. And just like that, in an instant, the illusion shattered. She closed her eyes, already crying. You know. I know, I said. I know about the rating system, about the mockery, about how you turned our marriage into a party. I know everything. She sobbed, covering her face with her hands, but this time I didn't comfort her, because I wasn't playing her game anymore. I felt absolutely nothing, no pity, no desire to comfort her. She had drained me of all compassion the moment she decided to turn our marriage into a group experiment. It wasn't like that, she whispered. It was exactly like that, I replied in an even tone. And now you're upset because I started my little experiment. What do you mean? She asked. I stood there looking down at her. I mean, I did my own research. You could say I've been exploring other options. The results were enlightening. Are you trying to replace me? The thought crossed my mind, I replied. I figured that if I was being judged as a contestant, I should find out what someone who really values me would say. Even I was surprised at how cold my voice sounded, but she deserved it. She started crying, but I didn't care anymore. I didn't want to be the one who absorbed all the pain anymore. Rebecca says I'm charming. Sarah believes I stimulate her mind. Amanda appreciates that I really listen. Imagine that dot. Please, she said, we can fix this. We can? I asked. Because I don't believe you understand what needs to be fixed. I headed for the stairs but stopped. By the way, you'd better cancel book club next week. I have plans. I think you'll find them much more educational than what you're doing. The fear in her eyes told me everything. The teacher was ready to become the student. By Sunday evening, I was ready. She spent the weekend in a panic, apologizing, explaining, minimizing. But I wasn't in the mood to listen to excuses. On the coffee table lay a folder, neatly folded, containing every report card, every cruel message, every humiliating detail she had shared with me. A paper time bomb. Sit down, I said when she entered the room. It's time for your evaluation. When she saw the folder, she froze. What is that? Your performance review. Since you love to grade people so much, I figured you deserved the same. I opened the folder and laid out the papers. Her handwriting stared back at her like a mirror she couldn't look away from. "Let's start with loyalty," I said, taking out my phone. "You get a 2 out of 10. A loyal wife doesn't make fun of her husband for entertainment." "Please let me explain." "Respect? 1 out of 10. The fact that you laugh about our personal life with your friends shows that you don't have any." I laid out the printed texts. "Trust is also 1. It proves that you lied to my face for months." She was sobbing. I continued. "Now let's talk about the others. Rebecca gets a 10 for gratitude. She sees my efforts. Sarah, 9 for respect. She really listens to me. Amanda gets an 8 for loyalty. She values her privacy." "Stop," she whispered. "But here's the catch," I continued. "All 3 of them want something more. Rebecca says I'm the man she's always been looking for. Sarah believes we can build a future together. And Amanda told me I'm everything her ex-husband wasn't." I leaned toward her. "That's my dilemma. Why stay with someone who gives me a 5 when there are women who give me a 10? "Because I love you," she cried. "Because we've built a life together. Marriage means working through problems." "Love?" I interrupted her, laughing bitterly. "You don't humiliate people you love. You don't make fun of their insecurities. You don't give them grades like they're on a reality show." I stood up and looked out the window. "Here's what you're going to do. Tomorrow you're going to call all your friends and confess. You'll tell them how you destroyed our marriage for fun. Then you'll pack your things and move back in with your mother. I need time to decide if there's anything left worth saving." "I'll do anything you want," she begged. "Fine. Start with the fact that respect is not optional, that marriage isn't a theatrical performance, that some damage can't be repaired." I handed her the folder. "Read every word, every insult, every betrayal. And then ask yourself if you would forgive someone who did that to you." She took the folder, her hands shaking. "You know what the difference is between us?" I asked. "When I found out what you were doing, I could have destroyed you. But I didn't. I didn't send messages to your family, your boss, or your mother, because I truly understand what loyalty is." "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now you'll find out what the real consequences are." I walked to the door. "I'm staying at a hotel tonight. When I come back, you won't be here. Think about who you want to be." "Where are you going?" she asked. "Rebecca invited me to dinner. She says she wants to talk about our future." The devastation on her face was the first genuine reaction I had seen in a long time. "Enjoy the assessment," I said. I walked out, and for the first time in months, felt like myself again, someone who didn't allow himself to be humiliated, who knew his worth and didn't accept love without dignity. She had turned my life into a game. I ended it like a champion. 2 weeks later, I was ready for the final act. She followed my instructions, moved in with her mother, and sent desperate apologies. But I had another plan. I found out that her book club's next meeting would be at Jessica's place. Perfect. That morning, I called Rebecca. "Tonight is the perfect night for dinner. I have a proposal that you'll love." At 8 p.m., we arrived at the location. Rebecca looked stunning, confident, radiant. Jessica opened the door and froze. "Can I help you?" "Yes. My wife is here for your book club. I'd like to share something with you." I walked past her into the living room. All the women froze. My wife looked like she had seen a ghost. "Ladies," I began, "thank you for helping with my wife's rating system. It was educational." No one responded. "Your rating sheets and jokes taught me a lot about respect, so I decided to conduct my own little study." I pointed to Rebecca. "This is my research partner." Rebecca smiled. "He told me all about your games. Interesting way to treat someone you claim to care about." Michelle stammered. "It was just fun. We didn't mean to hurt anyone." Fun, I repeated. Making fun of someone's most vulnerable moments is fun. I looked at my wife. The good news is that your system worked. It showed me that I deserve better. What do you mean? Jessica asked. I mean that Rebecca and I are thinking about something serious. It turns out that when you're with someone who values you, life is better. My wife stood up crying. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Rebecca respects what you rejected. She sees the strengths you laughed at. She offers support where you judged. Rebecca moved closer. He's everything I wanted in a partner. I can't imagine destroying him. The room fell silent again. So this is how it ends, I said. Your evaluations taught me that evaluations matter, and based on my conclusions, you all failed. I turned to my wife one last time. You wanted to judge me? Fine. But in competitions, there are winners and losers. And you lost. Please, she whispered. I'm not doing anything you didn't start. I'm just finishing what you started. With clarity. Rebecca took my hand. Let's go, my love. We have plans for dinner. Yes. Ladies, enjoy your club. Maybe read something about responsibility. As we were leaving, my wife shouted, "This isn't over!" I turned around. You're right. This isn't the end. It's the end. There's a difference. The air outside was warm. That was ruthless, Rebecca said admiringly. Remind me never to argue with you. People who respect boundaries never have to worry about that. As we drove away, I felt a deep sense of peace. Not because I had burned everything, but because I had finally demanded what I was worth. She had played with my dignity. I showed her what real justice was. Revenge isn't anger. It's clarity. It's the moment when someone realizes that cruelty has a price. And I finally settled the score. I was worth more than she could ever imagine.